Good morning, friends, and welcome back to Infinite Gems, where we discover the gems upon the shelves that inspire us to discover the gems within ourselves. It is January, which means there's lots of different ways that people are celebrating the new year, and it's also the same month as Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday. So we're going to focus on some books that celebrate diversity and the struggle for equality and freedom. The first book I wanted to share with you is Shantae Keys and the New Year's Peas by Gail Piernas Davenport and illustrated by Marian Eldridge. This is a really fun book. It has rhymes, and it's the story of Shantae Keys, who goes to her grandmother's house for a New Year's meal, and Grandma actually forgets to make the most important thing of all for New Year's, which is black-eyed peas, which is supposed to be good luck. So Shantae tries to save the day by going to visit different neighbors in the neighborhood, such as Mr. McGee, who tells her that, well, back home in my Scotland, far overseas, for New Year's we toast and eat haggis and cheese. So she visits all these different neighbors and learns about all these different traditions and cultures, and at the end, everyone gets together and they have black-eyed peas at her grandma's house. At the end of the book, there's also a recipe as well as a list of different countries and the different kinds of ways that people celebrate the New Year's. Another really fun New Year's book is Moonbeams, Dumplings, and Dragon Boats by Nina Simone's Leslie Schwartz and the Children's Museum Boston, illustrated by Milo So. What I like about this book is it has a combination of things. It has some folk tales that relate to the traditions of the holiday, as well as some craft activities. It has recipes as well. Vegetable sticks with peanut dip. Doesn't that sound like fun to make? The illustrations are really beautiful. You get to learn about the different animals of the Chinese zodiac. So this is one of those books that you can revisit over and over and over again, especially if you're a classroom teacher. Highly recommend it. Another great New Year's book is Freedom Soup by Tammy Charles and Jacqueline Alcantara. It's about Belle and her grandma cooking in the kitchen and dancing and having a grand old time. They're tapping their feet, they're making music as they click, clack, and mash up garlicky herbs to the compa beat. And as they're dancing and sharing this fun time together, Gran also asks her, well, do you know why we make freedom soup? And begins to tell the story of Haiti and the history of slavery and the history of people struggling for their freedom. Grandma shares how the trumpet blares and the revolution is here and the compa beats drum through her skin. At the end of the book, we see that the whole family has gathered. Cousins, uncles, and aunts arrive and dance and taste freedom again and again and again through Gran's stories. As I mentioned earlier, January is also the birthday of Martin Luther King Jr., and the book that I've selected is The Story of Martin Luther King Jr. by Johnny Ray Moore, illustrated by Amy Wummer. It tells the story of Martin Luther King Jr. from the perspective of him as a child, and how he loved going to school, but he also realized that his school was old and it needed a lot of fixing, but the school for the white children was new. It goes on to describe how he couldn't drink from any fountain and how he wanted to go to certain restaurants but couldn't go to those restaurants. And this made Martin angry. And we see that Martin channels his anger by becoming a preacher and speaking to people about the importance of his work and creating a dream in which his children will not be judged by the color of their skin. Yeah, I have used this book for kids as old as 7, 8, 9 years old. The words are very simple, but the message really gets through to kids of any age, so I highly recommend this one. Another not so obvious book that deals with the issue and history of segregation is Mixed, a colorful story by Ari Chung. Initially, this looks like it's just about some colors, red, yellow, and blue, and how primary colors mix and make other colors. But when you take a closer look, you really see that there's a lot of social commentary in this, which is what I think is so brilliant about it. So the story highlights how the different colors are special and unique in their own way. So for example, reds are the loudest, la 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 la, and yellows are the brightest, and blues are the coolest. And they all live in color harmony and they all live together until one day when the reds decide that they are the best. And because of that, they decide to live in different parts of the city. Not everyone listens to the rules because one day a yellow notices a blue and something happens. And eventually they decide to mix. Not everyone's thrilled about it, but they do end up creating a new color, green, who's bright like yellow and calm like blue, but really is a color all her own. And eventually all these different colors mix and create all these different other colors like jade and lavender and amber And everyone begins to realize that maybe the old neighborhoods didn't make sense anymore. And they decided that everyone should rebuild the city and all live together. And even though things aren't perfect, it's still home. The last book that I wanted to share with you is It Began with a Page. It's written by Keo McClear and illustrated by Julie Morstad. The illustrations are absolutely gorgeous. And the story is about an illustrator who was born in the early 1900s, Japanese American, and sometimes when she went to school, she felt a little invisible. But she was an incredibly talented artist, and people really recognized that. So she ended up going to Los Angeles in the 20s, studying art, going to Japan, studying art over there. And eventually, when she got back to the United States, she started working for Disney. At the same time, in the 1940s, her family was sent to an internment camp. And that's when she began to realize that maybe art could be used as a source of comfort and a way to uplift people. In the book, we also see that she is witnessing everything that's going around her during the civil rights movement. And because of that is inspired to try to bring in more mixed children into the children's book industry. But the publishing industry at the time in the early 1960s said, nope, we can't mix black children with white children on the same page. She kept pushing for it, and eventually, in 1963, she published the book Babies, which was one of the first books that featured multicultural children. And one of the reasons I really like this book is it inspires me to think about, well, how can I try to use my creativity and my energy to uplift and celebrate the diversity that exists in our community and in our world? Well, that's all for today, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. I thought we could end with a little song that reminds us to just remember to uplift the world when we can. Feel free to sing along. I feel a gem inside of you and feel a gem inside of me, waiting to shout, come out and dance about in the journey of discovery. So if a dream's inside your mind of a world that's sweet and kind, open up your heart, go ahead and start to uplift all humankind. Have a fabulous January, everyone. See you next time.